Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Experience Kills. Joining me, Ben, today is Rob.
Hello everyone.
It's good to have you, Rob. And I'm really excited to talk to you about the latest game from 10 Tons Limited, which to me are the premium developer residing in Finland. I will admit, I can't think of any other developers from Finland right now. However, I have loved pretty much every single game these guys have brought out since Crimson Land in like 2003 or something ridiculous. Though I think I probably played it for the first time when it made its way to the Xbox. But these guys kind of, to me, they've done other stuff, but they put themselves on the radar for me because what they do are they're twin stick shooters, right? They've done other things, like Undead Horde was a departure for them, which was more like an army managing kind of thing. But basically, the best stuff they do, these twin stick shooters, where it's you versus a crap ton of enemies with various power-ups and pretty blood physics and gore physics. Like when things explode, they spray their chunks, they cover the map in blood, it looks gross, and then as you proceed to go round and round the map, kiting the enemies, managing them as best as you can, the blood keeps building up and growing and looking more disgusting. Hence the name of their first game, Crimson Land, because it was covering the land in the crimson from the monster's guts. And here we're talking about, I didn't mention what game we were talking about yet, which is Tesla Force, which is kind of, I think, probably their first sort of sequel. They did a game, I think about a year or two ago, called Tesla vs. Lovecraft, which I also reviewed and loved. And in the intervening time, they did Undead Horde, and before that they've done a game called Judge, and they've done a few others like Neon Chrome as well. But like I said, at its core, to me, where they're at their best are these twin stick shooters, and that's what we have here in Tesla Force. Now, it's kind of built on Tesla v Lovecraft, so we've kind of got the similar concept of science versus demonic monsters, elder gods and that sort of stuff from the Lovecraftian universe, and so therefore the monsters you're fighting are kind of inspired by Lovecraft mythos. We have things that look a bit like, Eldritchian horrors and all kinds of things from the Stygian abyss. It's the language I love from Lovecraft and all that stuff. And but it's not kind of got that oppressive tone as well. It's still quite fun, and the basic core gameplay is, like I said, you're a guy on a map, there's loads of monsters, and there's a bit more depth to it than there used to be in, say, Crimson Land. You'll have various objectives, maybe take a control point, or maybe analyze an area and then hold the surrounding area for a certain amount of time, or find certain parts from a machine to fix it while dealing with increasing amounts of enemies. And the enemies only ever increase, because the more you kill, the higher the doom level goes, which means the more enemies that then spawn. And the way that's balanced is, as you go through the game and kill the enemies, they'll drop, say, different weapons, which will be an improvement over what you've got, various power-ups, various modifiers, and therefore you get, equally more powerful as you're managing these enemies. So there's obviously the implication here, and I think it's obvious, is that we're dealing with a kind of roguelike run-based game. So the more you play the game, the better your character gets, the further you'll get with the subsequent run. So it encourages you to go again and again and again, through these, and then you've got like an overmap, so you're picking different sort of missions to go into. So there's a various levels of choice, and then there's sort of like a self-selecting difficulty level. So you can go into a certain mission, there'll be of a certain toughness. Are you ready for that? Do you have a build that you're comfortable with? That sort of thing. For me, I like this lightning staff, which basically is a fire and forget weapon, because it fires a lightning bolt that will connect to the nearest enemy and then chain through various other enemies. So when I've got that build and I've got like the multi-barrel on it, or the quick improvements on the fire rate, and I'm just dropping lightning bolts everywhere, just watching enemies pop and explode all around me, it is so goddamn satisfying and so much fun to play, Rob.
That sounds so shocking.
I love it, but it's awful.
The enemies there. So you've got the 4 different characters you can play. You've got Tesla, Curie, of course, Lovecraft and Shelley that you can play as. Can you swap between them at will, or is it you pick one and they each have different perks and you go through a run with them? How does that sort of thing work?
Yeah, that's it. It's the second thing. So you are then, when you pick it for the run, that's who you've got. Mm-hmm. There is multiplayer though in this game, so there's local co-op for up to 4 players. So you could, in theory, all play as one of each character, and they've all got different modifiers. So some will have higher health. For example, Curie has lower health, slightly faster speed, but she dual wields single-hand guns. Whereas Tesla he's kind of the default character, sort of middle of the road for everything. So, you know, if you have, for example, the starting upgrade, you can upgrade the weapons that you start out as part of the, you know, as you're going through different runs, you're getting more of the crystals, so your currency. So you can get like an ion pistol. Now, Tesla would only have one, but Curie would have two, which makes her more effective offensively, but she can obviously take less damage defensively. So it's a case of what you know, is your sort of playstyle. I am actually a very offensive player in these games for the most part, so I'm usually going to go for that kind of dual wielding thing. The other thing you have, which is great for the mobility, which I love, is this teleport, which is on a cooldown. And another of the upgrades you can get can like reduce the cooldown, but you're just zipping around because you're going to get overwhelmed by the quantities of enemies. So that you just stayed in one place, or if you didn't use the teleport, you're going to get swamped. You'll find your health drops pretty damn quick as well when they're all around you attacking you. So you kind of, you know, you'll kite them into one area by running backwards usually and shooting at them. You get overwhelmed, you teleport out, you reposition, then you rinse and repeat as you move around the level. So it's all about using that level design, using the power-ups, using your mobility actions all in one, all in concert to be as effective as possible to minimize the damage you take, because the amount of health you have, you carry over between the stages because it's run-based. So, you can get health packs, you can find things in the world which you can use to buy back health and stuff using another currency called the batteries elements. So a lot of these little things that I'm talking about have been added here into Tesla Force, which weren't quite there, weren't as built out in Tesla versus Lovecraft. So this is why I think this sequel is actually really cool, because they've taken the core of that game, that setting, that concept, and they've really built it out and expanded it, kind of like what Doom Eternal did with Doom. Right, so it took those mechanics and it's built on them, and I think actually it does it in a way that's slightly better than Doom Eternal, because at times that felt overwhelming, whereas I never feel overwhelmed in this. I always feel like I can manage the enemies and the situations, and because the levels are quite bite-sized, you're never going to spend more than like 2.5 minutes in a stage at the most. So you know, they're quite small environments, and you get to know them intimately because you're traveling around them at such speed, because that's so important about managing the enemies, you know, using the environment to break up their horde so that they don't just overwhelm you, and it's just got such a good feeling to it. It's like so well tuned, it's just honed to this peak of action performance, and it runs beautifully on the Xbox Series X, which is what I'm running on. It looks incredible, the gore, the resolution, the frame rate, everything is just perfect. Really, really good fun, Rob.
It does look amazing. No, it's mostly I want to know where I can buy it.
It's about 15 quid on Xbox. I think that's what it's going for. It's not a lot. 10 tons games never are. I think this will probably end up on mobile devices. They do produce a lot of games for mobile, but it's nowhere near going to be as nice as it is on the Series X on a big screen. At high resolution, a high frame rate. It just plays and runs impeccably well, like really, really, really nice. And I love the run-based nature of it. We've got multiple characters, we've got couch co-op. There's so many ways of playing this. I played some of it with my wife. We had a great time. She felt a bit bewildered because this isn't her type of game, but I was able to help her and stuff. There's a limited revive mechanic, so you can bring people back a certain amount of times in co-op as well. But at the same time, it's that great feeling of like, yeah, you're gonna fail, but every time you fail, you're gonna make enough currency usually to get a bit upgraded, and you're gonna get a bit further next time. So there's always, like, you're always progressing, you're always going to get better and improve through the stages. There's three kind of distinct story-based locations over maps, and then inside of that there'll be multiple stages and multiple environments to go through as well. So I thought it felt like there was a lot of variety in this game, more than the one previous, and it's great to actually, like I said, I've been playing these 10 tons games ever since Crimson Land, and you can see the evolution that they've gone through of complexity, of level design, of bringing in these mechanics that make the game experience that bit more fun each time, and I love that, and I love that you can see their continued development. It's great, and so much fun, such a pure gaming experience. There's a bit of story in there, there's some framing stuff, it's basically, Netherrealm, Lovecraft invasion, and you're using science to fight it, and that's what gives you these awesome weapons as well. So like energy weapons and rapid fire shotguns, because they're all Tesla enhanced, and so they're all kind of believable and understandable, but yet twisted into something inventive and stuff, and it's just so much fun, Rob.
You mentioned before that obviously in a run you'll acquire currency to be able to then upgrade yourself. So are there persistent upgrades outside of the runs? Because that is very different to other games like this. This reminds me quite a lot of The Binding of Isaac, for example. It's a very similar concept, just in a very different aesthetic. So is that the case that you have upgrades separate to the actual run?
Absolutely, yeah. So you have obviously your run upgrades that are based only in the run, so power-ups, and then sort of abilities, and obviously the weapon pickups you get, and then outside of that you get a currency called crystals, which you can use to kind of give yourself permanent fixed upgrades, so to certain abilities that you can carry over, starting weapons, things of that nature, so that you don't always start with, say, a pistol, and you can like upgrade that, and obviously they get subsequently more and more expensive, and there's a risk reward. You can keep replaying that first stage, right, because it's easier, and you can complete it, and you can therefore get more reward, but then per sort of level inside of that stage you're going to get less rewards than you would on the more difficult settings, because they're going to give it's a risk reward. So it's about balancing that out, do a little bit of grinding, maybe makes it easier to get further on later into the game. So yeah, there's a lot of balancing there, but there's no shortage of content. That's the thing, that there's a lot to do in this game, and you can play it at your own pace. Like I said, you can do it in co-op with some friends. It's just a really good, I find it a really nice unwinding kind of game, because it's a very easy to grasp mental game. What the experience is. It's very familiar, top-down setting. Twin stick shooter mechanics are very easy to understand. Yes, there's some teleporting and mobility abilities in here that add a little bit of complexity, but I never find like it's a game I can't just play for a few minutes before bed.
Yeah.
It's just a really nice chill experience in that regard, even though it's incredibly violent, incredibly gory, and incredibly intense.
How challenging do the runs get? Because again, I'll refer back to like the Binding of Isaac. The boss fights and that sort of thing at the end of stages and the ends of floors in that were very, very complicated sometimes, and merciless if you got bad luck with your drops. Are there mini bosses at the end of these sorts of stages? How aggressive do they get?
Yeah, so once you get a few upgrades, you can see what levels you're picking within each stage and what they give you, and like if it's going to be a boss fight, is it going to be an area control one, that kind of thing, and therefore you can pick. Those are low cost upgrades, so they're kind of expected that most people will pick them up early on in the game, and I do advise that. And then you can pick what sort of things you're going to be facing in your runs. Obviously, the more challenging, the better the rewards.
Yeah.
But yes, end of each major stage there is a major boss, and then there are mini bosses you can face throughout if you so wish to do that. But you can also avoid them if you're not in the mood for that. So it gives you a lot of like flexibility in that regard. But yeah, I never found the stages themselves. What you have to do I've never come across a complicated setup in that regard, but the difficulty will spike because it's going to be quantities and variety of enemy that makes it challenging. Obviously, certain enemies are a lot tougher, certain enemies will have range attacks and things like that you're going to have to deal with, as well as the melee attacks. So it's all about that sort of mixture of enemy type and boss that is going to make it hard, rather than any kind of puzzle mechanics. And that to me is perfect. I'm not a big fan of like puzzles under pressure, but give me lots of enemies to kite and deal with, and I'm in my happy place.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think I need to go onto my Xbox Series X and buy a game.
This is always the risk of doing a review with me. You'll come out with me. I'm going to buy that now. It happened to Richard a lot. I think I've cost Richard a lot of money over the years. Yeah. So that was Tesla Force by 10 Tons Limited. You can't get much more of a recommendation than Rob saying he's about to go and buy it. So that take that as you will. I certainly love these games, and I love this developer, and I think they've got a great attitude to what they put out. So I'm always excited to see what comes out from them. And I guess a ringing endorsement from me on Tesla Force. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, keep an eye on @ExperienceKills on Twitter. We may well have a competition running on there very shortly. Please give us a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Much appreciated. It's literally all we ask for. If you don't have time to watch these amazing videos, you can of course find them as podcasts as well from anywhere a good podcast can be found. You can find me on Twitter @DIYE, and you can find Rob on Twitter @HomelessMrGibbs. And I believe that's everything. I think I've ticked all the boxes there, Rob. So until next time, I'd say get your twin sticks warmed up, ready for a great time on Tesla Force.
Sounds like a good way to spend an afternoon to me.
Absolutely. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.